Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Gooners podcast. This was not supposed to be me, so I don't know if I make some mistakes, if I'm being as dumb as I always am. Please pardon, but I've got really good show in today with Mitch. Welcome back, Mitch.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Good to be back.
Yeah, we are here to talk about the World Cup. Get Mitch's thought because he knows things much more than me, and he's partially I would call him an expert, but I would also I know he's modest, so he would say no, I'm not. So
I would not describe myself as an expert, and I don't think that's me being modest. I think that's just me saying that I am not an expert, but I will do my best to have some good discussions here.
Yeah, but man, that is him being modest. You guys should have seen his Twitter. If you have not checked out his Twitter about the World Cup things, his tweets about the World Cup, just go and check out his Twitter page. It's amazing. It's really good. And
thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And I'm not at all I'm actually shameless in sharing that. I took a lot of my questions out from your page, so it's going to
that makes it easier for me. That means you're not going to spring on anything that I don't already know, because this is the research that I already did.
So yeah, so that's what we are about to do. We are going to literally try and predict the World Cup and have a discussion about the World Cup. So for all the listeners, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment in your predictions, comment in all the topics that we are discussing, just comment in everything. And do follow Mitch if you have not followed him yet.
You can find me on Twitter at Mitch Peotter, MITCHPEOTTER.
Awesome. So with that out of the way, Mitch, first question first, before we get into, a World Cup, I want to know your thoughts on Arsenal being top of the league.
I'm really, really disappointed in how we've been this season. We've just been awful. It has not been fun to be an Arsenal fan this season at all. So I'm obviously, it's just wonderful. It's been a great time. I think it's beyond all of our imaginations of what we thought the start to the season for Arsenal would be. It's just been a completely, we're seeing the fruits of this Arteta revolution at Arsenal, and all of these players just playing so well as a team, and it's been really, really cool to see. Hopefully we can keep it up. I think we've reached a point where we have to admit that we are title challengers, which is kind of crazy. It's the first time since I've been a fan that we've been title challengers, which is really, really fun. And to be able to see that grow as the season progresses will be really, really interesting.
And the other thing that we really have to discuss is Ronaldo's interview with, Piers Morgan, and the subsequent fallout. I mean, I'm so happy about that. I mean,
me too.
All our listeners know that, we took half an hour of the last episode to gloat about it. But what are your thoughts on that? How is this going to affect their season? Because they did look very much they're not looking great, but they are plucking points out of teams.
Yeah, I think it's very clear what Ten Hag wants to do with this Manchester United team, and I think that they're showing flashes of that. They still need to get their players in and stuff, and they need to give him time, just like we gave him Arteta time. And I think getting rid of Ronaldo will do them a world of good. For a multitude of reasons prior to this interview, but then this interview just kind of sped the timeline up. It's okay, we need to get him out now, because it is one of the most egregious things I've ever seen a player do while under contract with the club. What Lukaku did last season, where he was I miss Inter, I need to go back to Inter. That was crazy. This is worse. I don't know how, because 10 minutes was released of that interview, off rip, and it was already awful. And it was oh, stay tuned, there's 80 more minutes of this. And it's holy shit. What are you going to say for 80 minutes? I've never been a huge Ronaldo guy. So I'm more than happy to watch him ruin his legacy. So yeah, I mean, as an Arsenal fan and as a more of a Messi guy myself, I'm loving it. I think it's great.
Amazing, because I am a Messi guy too, and I mean, more than I'm a Messi guy, I'm more like Ronaldo hater. So I'm loving it. I'm loving the whole thing. I'm watching like United fans, go up in flames. I'm like, oh, this is like music to my ears. Bring me more. But World Cup, getting back to the World Cup, right? Like having the World Cup in the middle of the season it's weird, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I mean, it's a little strange, obviously, just because that's not the norm. That's not what we're usually happening. To be able to, like, where we're taking a month off of the club season for this World Cup is it's weird. It's strange, especially as an Arsenal fan. We're top of the table and we've got all this momentum. It's kind of frustrating to like go into this like huge break where like anything can happen in terms of like injuries and players getting worn out and stuff like that. Because obviously, as an Arsenal fan, you want our players to like play and do well in this tournament. But at the same time, you're like, hey, maybe just give them a free vacation to Qatar. I'm cool with that because I want them to be saved for what I actually care about, which is the Arsenal season. So yeah, it's obviously very weird. I understand why they had to do it with Qatar's climate and stuff like that. Because as of right now, it's not nearly as hot as it would be if they tried to do a Summer World Cup. So I think that is a good choice, but I think logistically it's been a little bit of a nightmare because even now we're seeing like people like Mane and Benzema are out of the World Cup for injuries that wouldn't normally put them out of the World Cup.
They were out. Like Pogba was out already. Partey was out. So
and Reece James, like there's so many like talented players who like should not be missing this World Cup that will be because of injuries that wouldn't cause them to miss it if it wasn't a mid-season World Cup. And that's really frustrating as a fan. And like, I'm not even an England fan or a France fan, but like, it's still frustrating to like, because when you're watching World Cup, you expect to see like the best players in the world on the field. And you don't get that when they're like, oh, it's like a 2-week injury. So he's just out of the World Cup entirely. It's like, oh, that sucks.
So there are a couple of things, right? Like before we jump into like the mid-season World Cup, like what does World Cup mean to someone like, someone like you or someone who's also a fan of like, league football or like, club football? For us, it's usually like, oh, World Cup is a break, but we fail to notice that it's the biggest sporting event. Like, people who don't follow club football, it's going to be completely different. So what does World Cup mean in general? Like, do you have friends who just don't follow, club football, but watch the World Cup so that you have some idea around that?
Yeah, I think it just in general, it's a really good like gateway into the sport. Like I started following the sport as a whole in 2014 during the Brazil World Cup. And now here I am talking about it and being recorded to talk about it. So it's like a really, really good like gateway for people to, and especially I've noticed this in the States of getting into the sport and beginning to watch the sport and getting into it. So I think from like a fan perspective, from a neutral perspective, it's like a great spectacle for anyone, even if you're not a fan of the sport or if you are. And then for people who are fans of the sport, even if you're someone who loves club, like I will watch Arsenal over the United States every day of the week. Every single day of the week, I will watch Arsenal over the US. But I am so excited for this World Cup because it's a World Cup. Like the fact that it's like every 4 years, it's like the Olympics. It makes it special in the fact that you have to wait so long for it, and all these countries competing. Exactly, all these countries competing against each other. It's the highest team award in the sport. And it's 100%. Like I think there's a reason why fans get so excited. Like I don't care that much about like random international friendlies or even like in smaller international tournaments. I don't really care as much about, but a World Cup comes around, and even if I have my reservations about like certain things around this World Cup, I'm still going to be sitting down and trying to watch every single match because it's a World Cup. I feel like I have to. It's only around every 4 years. It's like this special like grandeur around it.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, getting back to this being the mid-season World Cup, how much of lack of preparation? Like today, when we are recording, the Saudi team played. And the commentators said something important in that. Like they said the Saudi team had been together for like months now, preparing for the World Cup. But that's not a luxury that other teams can have. Like literally, they are just putting players together and they're coming into the tournament. Would that impact the level of the tournament? Like, the level of the competition in the
Well, I
tournament?
mean, if we're talking about the Qatar team in particular, I mean, it did not help them very much because they lost 2-0 to Ecuador and they did not look good. And I mean, it's very clear that Qatar is only in this tournament because they're the host. And yeah, obviously when you're hosting a tournament, you're automatically going to get in. I understand that that's how it works, but like this Qatar team is not good at all. Like that, I don't know if they score a goal in their group because they play against Senegal and the Netherlands in the next 2 matches. And those are both really solid sides. Like Ecuador was their best shot of like getting any sort of result. And they're not gonna, I don't think they're scoring a goal, honestly, because they looked toothless. They looked out of their depth against this Ecuador team. And I don't think, I think that it's just kind of like the nature of the World Cup is like the host is going to be in the competition. There's not much you can do about that. The host is going to be in it. And if they are lesser than a lot of the other teams, then yeah, that's just kind of the reality to roll with. But there's a lot of other teams in this tournament that all earned their spots to be here, and they'll all put on a show.
But that's what I'm saying. Like when we talk about putting on a show, right? How much of under preparation, because it's in the middle of the season, because if it is a summer World Cup, right? Like you would have at least a couple of weeks where your players are together. A national team comes together from different leagues, like the players come together from different teams and stuff. So different styles of play, different managerial styles, the way they train, everything is different. And they come in and play as one team. So how much of that, like, because I usually find that difficult when I'm talking to someone who doesn't follow the sport, to explain to them that, okay, a game, like, because they watch a game like, US versus like, or today, like Ecuador versus South, like Qatar, and say like, oh, it's a boring sport. No, it's not. It's national team that's boring. It's like if you go to club football, the game is much more interesting. So that way, how much of it is becoming less of a spectacle because of it being a mid-season thing?
I really don't know if it's gonna. I think the biggest effect that it will have in terms of being less of a spectacle will be like losing out on some stars, like I was saying with like Mane or
Benzema,
like Benzema and Reece James, like those kind of players being injured. I think that's the biggest thing that's pulling away from the spectacle. I do think that like obviously there's less preparation in these national teams than like you get in the club teams. The club teams play together every week. They're constantly together. They're going to be a lot better. But I think the product that we're seeing already, like in that Ecuador Qatar game, it was still a fun watch. Like to watch Ecuador like do their thing against a team that was like that they were clearly better again then. Because like, I mean, I'm someone who loves the sport, so like I'm willing to watch whatever. Like when it comes to it. So like there's not a lot that I'm just gonna like turn my nose up to when it comes to watching it, because I'm like, oh, it's just not gonna be good. Because like there's always like those like magic moments of a World Cup, and that will make it the great thing that it is.
Coming back to Arsenal, how do you think this break is going to, because like for some teams, like especially when a team is struggling, that's when you would be like, yeah, we get a break, this is good for us. But for us, we are literally on a roll. To get a break when that is happening is detrimental to what I am thinking. But the other thing is, the other side of it is like, okay, yeah, but we are on a roll, but we have a very small squad. To get a rest out of the squad at this point in time is good. So I'm just stuck in between these two sides. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think obviously the like loss of momentum is annoying. But if this team is legit, which we all think they are, and I'm pretty sure that they are, it should not be like a huge turmoil thing to like come back to the World Cup from the World Cup and they all like forget how to play with each other. They all forgot what it was that they were doing the entire season. I don't think that that's going to happen. I think the losing momentum is not going to be good, but it's not going to derail our season, because it's also not a thing that like only us are it's happening to us. Like last season when there was like big breaks for like COVID, when there was like COVID outbreaks in teams and they were taking like 2 or 3 games off, that was a time where like, oh, that's going to be disruptive for a club because they're having this time off and like losing momentum or getting rest or however you frame it, and everyone else is continuing to play on. I feel like that is a way bigger thing than like the World Cup, because all of our competitors for the league or for top four are all being affected by this World Cup. Everyone is not playing games. Everyone is sending their best players to the World Cup. Everyone has the chance for an injury to affect one of their best players. There's an equal risk that goes all around when it goes to the Big Six and I guess Newcastle, because they're good now. So I don't think that it's going to be detrimental for Arsenal. I think that other clubs will be affected in similar ways, but it's not exactly the greatest thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So let me ask this question, because that's something like in your tweets you were mentioning about how Arsenal players going to the World Cup, like what are their chances of getting into the team, how it's going to affect. Because in my mind, that's what my thoughts are, right? Like, yes, all the teams around us are sending their best players to the World Cup, but we rely a lot more on our best players. We saw how our second 11 was not good enough. Like when they played against like Brighton in that cup game, that's our second 11, and they were not good enough to to play against Brighton. I'm not discrediting Brighton. Brighton are flying high this season, but still, I feel that our second list of players, our squad players, are not good enough as our first level of players, like Saka or Partey are irreplaceable. That's what my thoughts are.
Yeah, I think obviously we have players like that, but so does Man City. Like Man City also has players that like there's a huge drop off between their ones and twos. Like if they lost Haaland or De Bruyne, it would be just as detrimental. So like I think it's kind of a one-way street that we're playing, because we're Arsenal fans. We're naturally going to think about Arsenal, and so we're like, oh, if we lose this player, or rival fans that are hoping we fail, it's like, oh, if they lose this player, then they're screwed. And it's like, well, yeah, but like most teams like have important and crucial players that like are invaluable to how they proceed. Like if Spurs lose Kane for an extended period of time, their goals are going to dry up a lot. If Man City loses Haaland or they lose Kevin De Bruyne, their goals are going to dry up a lot. Like all of these teams have crucial players. And so I think there's like this bit of like this fear factor of like, oh, but what if this happens? Yeah. And it's like, okay, yeah, but that also could happen to anyone.
I think it's just the Arsenal fan in me who's seen so many things. I'm just like, just for once, let all the good things happen to Arsenal.
Yeah. And then also with our second 11, it's improved a lot from last season. Like there's no situation at this point, or a very unlikely situation is that we're going to see Granit Xhaka playing left back, because we have like two really, really solid players that like Arteta trusts at that position. And all of a sudden that is not as like crucial of a place where it's like, oh, if one of our players gets hurt, it's like, what are we going to do? Obviously there are holes in our roster where there's huge drop-offs, and that happens to everyone. But I think that people are a little too harsh on our second 11. I think that people have been like, I'm personally a huge fan of Eddie Nketiah and Sambi Lokonga, and both of those players have like not been at their what I think is their best and what they can be, and they've gotten a lot of hate for that. And I think that's kind of unfair because of like the teams that they've been around and the like just the situations they've been in different game states. But also, yeah, they need to improve. But it's not like our season is done if Eddie Nketiah gets into a game. Like that's like a way overreaction that is just not necessary, you know?
So talking about the players, right? I mean, yeah, so we don't have like as many players as Man City going to the World Cup, but we do have players who are going. So let's go through the players that's going to the World Cup and say like, you can give me like, I'll throw in the player's name and you can give me like what is their chances of playing and how far off they are going to go into the tournament, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
So let's start at the back. Aaron Ramsdale is going to the World Cup. So what do you think his chances are with England?
I don't think he plays. I would be surprised if Ramsdale plays a minute, because, and that's not necessarily saying that Pickford is better than him. I think that Pickford has shown to be such an integral part of this England setup for so many years that Southgate can just truly rely on him. And if he's healthy, he will play. I don't think that there's a time in which Ramsdale starts over him. And that's not a knock on Ramsdale. I think this will be far from Aaron Ramsdale's last opportunity to play at a World Cup. I think in the future he will totally have shots at that, but I think at this very moment, I don't think he plays a minute, which is great for Arsenal.
The other one from England is Ben White.
Yes, I think he's a bit of a weird one because, like, you know, we've seen him at right back this season, and then we've also seen him at center back last season. So I think that he's a solid option for England in either place. Like
because they play back three, right?
England if they play a back three, I really like Ben White in the right side of a back three. So, and I assume that Southgate would think similarly. Also, if you know you take Trippier off, your other options are Trent Alexander-Arnold or Ben White. So if you want a more defensively secure player, you're going to bring on Ben White. I think Ben White's versatility makes it seem like that he'll play at the World Cup, but I don't think he'll start, and I don't think he's going to get like a serious amount of minutes. I think that I think England has a chance to make a run in the tournament. I don't think he's going to be like a crucial player, and I don't think he's going to be like playing all of the 90s. I think like maybe he gets 20 minutes here or there, but nothing crazy.
So moving on, the back line, we do have like the other person who's going to the World Cup is Tomiyasu. I mean, we have seen that we have grown less reliant on Tomiyasu, but he's still, for me, a very important player in this Arsenal squad. So his chances of playing, and like how far do you think Japan would go in?
I think he's a crucial player for Japan. He starts for them, and I've seen it in a World Cup warm-up game against the US. He played left center back, which was interesting. So he's played there a bit for them, so that's a little bit less of a taxing position. They're in a bit of a tough group with Spain, Costa Rica, and Germany. I personally predicted them to get out because I'm low on the Spain team. I don't think that they make a run in the knockouts if they do make it out of the group stage. I think they've got a shot. They're a solid team. They're well set up. They've got some good players. They've got quality in there. I think that they could surprise people. And I think I might just be too low on Spain though. And they very easily could just not make it out of the group. I think from an Arsenal perspective, Japan not making it out of the group would be really good. But also Tomiyasu playing center back for Japan isn't as he's not in like as a taxing position that if he was playing like right back for them. So I think that overall it's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to Tomiyasu.
Okay. The other person I'm actually afraid of a lot is Saliba going to the World Cup for France. Personally, for me, he starts in Didier Deschamps' team. But also France goes in deep. At least that's how I see. Like France is, even though they lack Pogba, they lack like Kante, they lack Benzema, they are still going to go in deep, at least to me. And in that sense, if he is starting, I'm worried for him because he's going to play a lot more minutes. He's going to play because you don't change center backs you don't sub center backs during the game much. So he's going to play a lot more minutes than what I want. Although it'll be good if he came out of it with like more confidence. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think that there is a really good chance that he plays a lot for France, and I agree that they will make a deep run in the tournament. I think I have them losing in the final in my prediction that I made.
We are going to do the predictions after this.
So I had them definitely making a run, and I think Saliba definitely plays a big part in that team. I'm not necessarily super nervous about him because I think if there's anyone that there's not to be nervous about, it's William Saliba because he himself is so calm that I feel like as fans, we need to be calm about him. I think as fans, we need to be prideful that our 21-year-old center back is starting for a World Cup favorite in a World Cup if he is playing as much as he's projected to. So yeah, I'm not exactly nervous about his play time. I think that he probably has the most likelihood of any Arsenal player to play the most minutes in this World Cup. But again, like I was saying with Tomiyasu, center back isn't as taxing a position, even though you do play for more minutes in terms of just like physically like running and stuff like that. And I don't want to jinx anything, but like hopefully there's less of a chance for injury there. And so hopefully he comes out of the World Cup having played a lot of minutes and is still feeling good, because obviously, like from an Arsenal's perspective, we want our players to like not play, but like from a pride perspective, we're still like, I really want them to play because I want them to like represent our team well and like to be able to do that. But I'm not worried about him at all.
Okay. The other person I was like, I mean, I'm worried about three people. So, but the other person that I'm really, really worried about is like Thomas Partey, right? Because he's so important to everything Arsenal does. When he plays, the team plays a little like different. When he doesn't, the team plays a little bit different. So it's like, but him being the captain of Ghana, I don't know how deep they can go and stuff, but how like he's gonna start, right?
I think he absolutely starts. I think he's as integral for them as he is for us. But Group H is really tough. They've got still a good Portugal team, even though Ronaldo might be a little bit of distraction for them. Uruguay is a really good team, and so is South Korea. I think that I don't think that they make it out of the group personally. I don't think Ghana makes it out of the group, so I think that's a kind of a breath for Arsenal fans.
No, that'd be good. And the other person is again like Granit Xhaka. He's a captain for Switzerland, and he's gonna start. And we know him. We know how he is. He will put everything on that pitch every time he's there, playing for his country or club. He is always like 100% player. So I'm not worried about him because he's never been, someone who gets. I mean, knock on wood that he doesn't get injured. He's not the person. He's ever present in any team that he plays. But how deep do you think? I mean, how much of a minutes? How much of a fear factor I should have about him representing the country?
I don't think there should be much fear factor, but I do think that he plays a lot of minutes for them in every single match. I think he plays a lot of minutes for them. I have them as a sleeper team that I think can make a run because I think their path is favorable for them. Yeah. They're in a group with Brazil and Serbia and Cameroon. I think that it's either between them or Serbia to make it out of the group, but I like this Switzerland team. I think the fire under Jordan Shaqiri and Granit Xhaka playing Serbia should help. I actually have them making quite a run in the tournament, but like I would not put much stock into my prediction. They were really good at the Euros. Xhaka was really good at the Euros. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm not worried about him because he's had one major injury as an Arsenal player, which is pretty impressive given how important he's been to so many different Arsenal teams.
Yeah, man. He's one of the player of the tournament for Arsenal, at least till now. Like, player of the season, at least for Arsenal till now, for me. He's been amazing this season. And he's been doing that, like he's been putting in a very good performance for quite some time for Arsenal. We've had our troubles. I have slated him a lot. And I mean, deservedly so. When he plays well, I say good things about him. When he doesn't, I say bad things. But again, he's been instrumental all the way. The last person is, I mean, before we go on to the other ones, but like the English kid, Saka, for me, he's integral to the team. The only problem for me is where he is going to play. Like Southgate likes him playing at like left wing instead of the right wing. He was played at left back. So where do you think he plays and how long?
I mean, obviously, as Arsenal fans, the best you can get out of Saka is putting him on the right wing.
Yeah.
If Southgate tries anything like playing him as a left wing back or playing him as a left back, it's not going to go well. And we've seen that when he's tried that in England setups, it hasn't gone well. Saka is a really, really good player. He's especially good on the right wing. And I think he plays there. I think he's like integral to starting there. I think that he's the best choice to start on the right wing for England. I think he's a better choice than Mason Mount or a better choice than Phil Foden. Especially,
but is he better choice than Sterling?
I think Sterling starts on the left, and Saka starts on the right. Generally, I think the England's best front three, I think, is Kane, Sterling, and Saka. And I obviously, as an Arsenal fan, don't really want Saka playing as much, but like as an Arsenal fan, you also want, like, if England do really well in this tournament, I would love for Saka to be a key part of this team. And I think there's a real chance that happens. And if England does well, Saka will be a huge part of that.
Okay. So the Brazilians, both the Brazilians, right? Like, the Gabriels. So let's start with Martinelli. There has been reports around saying that he's going to start ahead of some of the other well-known names. I don't know how much stock I could put into that, but knowing Martinelli, we are pretty sure that he would have impressed the coaches in the training. He would have given 100% there.
Absolutely.
So do you think he's going to get like more minutes? I don't think he's going to be a starter, in
Mhm.
that Brazilian team, but do you think he'll get more minutes?
I think that there's a real possibility that, because I think when he was initially picked, we're like, oh wow, congratulations on making it, but we didn't really
Hmm.
think to
Hmm.
put much stock in him playing very much. But like those reports are encouraging, and it also just makes a lot of sense. I could totally see Martinelli having like a national team breakout in the way that Saka did at the Euros,
Hmm.
where all of a sudden he goes from like a player that like, oh, he made it, to a very, very important player for the team. And that's a really, really impressive feat if he manages to do that, considering how much talent Brazil has. Because you look at Brazil on paper and you're like, oh, you've got Vinicius, you got Neymar,
Yep.
you've all of these excellent attackers. And if Martinelli manages to get substantial minutes for this Brazil team that I personally have my favorites to win the World Cup, that's going to be awesome. And I can't even like put my Arsenal hat on of like, oh, but he should be rested. No, I want him playing all the time, and I want
Yeah.
him to be a key part of a World Cup winning side. I think that'd be awesome.
Hmm. The other Brazilian is our striker, Jesus. Personally, for me, I want him to do well. I want him to play a lot more minutes because he's been having this phase where he's been blanking a little bit more than what I would expect our striker to be. Like he's not scoring as much. So I would say this is a chance for him to break that shackle, score some goals, get himself that shooting boots back on. Uh, I don't know if he would be a starter, but I wish he would get like minutes, which is weird because I want all Arsenal players to get less minutes, but I want more minutes for Jesus.
I think, yeah, I'm with you there. Where Jesus plays a lot, he has the ability to kind of get some more confidence in front of goal, which I think would be really big for him. I think it's just how much he actually plays depends on how Brazil end up setting up. Because if they're playing with an out and out striker, he's their best option. He's better than Richarlison, a way better option there. But like they also have the ability to play Neymar up front. So if they decide to do that, I think that pushes Jesus out of the team a little bit, which, from an Arsenal perspective, not terrible. But like, yeah, I think that he'll play for sure. I think that whether he's starting or not, he's going to get minutes for this Brazil team. I think it just depends on how they decide to set up and what kind of center forward they want.
That makes sense. Oh, actually, we forgot Matt Turner.
I'm just like waiting to talk about the American, and you're just stringing me along. You're talking about the goalkeepers. I'm like, no, we forgot.
Oh, I forgot. I completely forgot. That's
Matt Turner's going to start every single match for the United States. He's our number one. He's really, really good for the US. I'm obviously higher on the US than I think a lot of people are, just because I'm a homer. I think that we have the ability to win a round of 16 game. We'll see. Obviously, I think Matt Turner playing a lot doesn't really affect Arsenal as much. But I think it's really cool that he's going to be playing every single game, most likely. And hopefully this US team does well. Obviously, as an American, I really want us to represent well at a World Cup. And I think Matt Turner being a really, really solid shot stopper is a big part of that.
Oh, I would love to, for him to become like, that is one position I always feel like, Ramsdale needs someone to push him. Like Leno did it. I need Matt Turner to be good. I need Matt Turner to come back and like literally put a performance in Europa League and anywhere he gets a chance to just push Ramsdale that much more. That we love Ramsdale, but we at least I feel that he's a little bit complacent in sometimes, and that is something that he needs, that fire under him for him to perform well. And I would love for Matt Turner, and we've had good goalkeepers, we have created good goalkeepers out of ours, so I would love to have another one of those.
Yeah, for sure.
So to continue the discussion, right, let's do this thing where we could predict the tournament based on your expertise and my stupidity. So let's see how things go. So I am going to share my screen to do this predictor thing. So yeah.
All right.
So let's do this, right? Let's go group by group and see where we land. I mean, already Qatar is bottom of the league. Let's just pick two countries for each group, like
Okay.
1 and 2, so that we can do it quicker.
Yeah, for sure. I think pre-Mane injury, I had predicted that Senegal would win the group. I now think that the Netherlands will, but I think Senegal will still make it out. I think Ecuador looked really good today, but I think it may have been more Qatar looking bad. But we'll have to see when those two countries play each other. So I would go Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador, Qatar.
Okay. Group B.
I think England win the group, unfortunately. And then I do think that the US gets second, and then Wales, and then Iran.
You don't think that Wales, who are in the tournament after like 50 years or something, with Gareth Bale in, wouldn't edge past?
I think they got a shot. If the US plays badly, Wales is going to make it through. I'm gonna be a homer here, and I'm putting faith in my boys. I'm putting the USA at 2 and Wales at 3 and Iran at 4.
Okay. I'll go along. This is your predictions at the end of the day. So let's do Group C. I would have put Wales above US in that group just because I know Wales players more, and
wow.
Come on.
So for Group C, I would go Argentina, Mexico, Poland, Saudi Arabia.
You're putting Mexico above Poland.
I am, because Mexico is really good at getting knocked out at the round of 16. They are excellent at that. I think that they are good enough to make it there. They will not get past the round of 16. And Poland obviously has talent. They're definitely not going to be out of the conversation of making it out of the group.
I mean, literally, they have Lewandowski.
Yeah.
You don't think Lewandowski would put them into a path where they would go ahead of?
I don't know if he can like put on like the carry as well as like Mexico's a good team. Like they're a solid squad. They've got a lot of talent, and they're really, really good at least getting out of the groups in these tournaments. So I think they make it out.
Okay. Group D.
I think France wins it, and then Denmark second, Australia third, Tunisia fourth.
That is what I thought too.
Yeah.
Group E is interesting, actually.
See, this is where I get a little weird, because I mentioned earlier I'm a little low on Spain. I think Germany wins the group, and then I think Japan gets second, and then Spain third, and Costa Rica fourth.
Wow. Do you think the new generation, as they put it, like Ansu Fati and all those whatever?
Yeah,
people,
obviously they got a lot of young talent on the Spain team. They're still very talented, but I think it might just be like a little bit of an awkward period between like these older guys leaving the team and these newer guys coming in. I very likely could be wrong. I think this is a little bit of a hot take to have Japan above Spain in that group.
Okay. Group F.
Yeah.
Group F.
I think Belgium win it.
Uh-huh.
My second hot take is that Canada makes it through. I mean,
I would be happy about that.
Yeah.
I am supporting Canada in
Yeah.
that group. But
and then Croatia third and Morocco fourth. Croatia is a very good team.
Mhm.
They've made very far in the last World Cup, but I think the age is showing up for them a little bit. Like Modric isn't going to be able to like be the same guy that he was in 2018. He's still a very good player, obviously, but like he won the Ballon d'Or.
I don't like him, so
Okay,
I don't
fair
like
enough.
him, so it's fine.
And I'm a big fan of some of these Canadian players, like Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David. Like they got some talent on this team, and I like them to at least make it into the knockouts.
The only thing that I'm worried about Canada opportunities in there, like, I mean, I would like Canada to go deeper, but I think like Croatia makes it for me, just because for me, Canada is a decent team, but this conditions would be against them, like playing in like hot weather. Like most of them are not used to that. So
yeah, I think that could be interesting dynamic with that. I think it's an interesting dynamic with a lot of teams of like the kind of adjusting to it.
Yeah.
But Qatar isn't. The weather right now, I looked the other day. I'm like, oh, because I saw a video of the England team like looking, they were dying.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's 84 degrees Fahrenheit. What are you guys freaking out about? Like like that's a normal summer day in most places. Like that's a nice day, honestly. But yeah, I think there's I very likely could be wrong, but I really like this Canada team. So I'm putting them above Croatia.
Group G is.
I think Brazil easily win it.
Yeah.
And then Switzerland for me, it comes second. And then Serbia, and then Cameroon. Serbia's got a good team. They've got Dusan Vlahovic and Alexander Mitrovic, which is a scary striker duo. And they've got some good players, but I like this Swiss team. They made a really nice run in the Euros. And I think they can make another nice run again in this tournament.
I hope so. Group H is interesting because I think like that is the group of death, according to me.
Yeah, I think the highest rated group for FIFA coefficients is actually Group B with England, US, and Wales. But this one is like a tough group where I'm just like looking at that. I'm like, man, that's a tough four. I think that Uruguay wins the group.
Okay.
And then it kind of it's either Korea or Portugal for me. And I think Portugal just has enough talent to force their way through past Korea. But I think that any order of those teams could change. Those are four quality nations. And I think it can go in any direction.
I mean, it's just my hate for Cristiano Ronaldo that
I would love for them to go out in the group in his last World Cup. As a hater, I would love that. But if I'm trying to give a somewhat accurate prediction, I will have them go through over South Korea.
Okay. Now we are in the round of 16. That's an interesting one. Do you still go root for your home team against Netherlands?
I do.
Really?
I honestly like us against Netherlands. Like I like the options out of Group A that the US can play if we get second in our group. Like I think that we could beat the Netherlands or Senegal. But also I'm very biased. So like I need
okay, a biased take it is. Let's put the US up.
That's as far as we'll go. We're not beating Argentina in the next round, who I have beating Denmark. And it's a bummer that Denmark plays Argentina because I do like this Denmark team and I think they could make a run. But Argentina is so good and I think they beat them in the first round of the knockouts. I think England beat Senegal. I think France beats Mexico because again, I don't think Mexico is getting anywhere further than the round of 16.
No, they are always the round of 16 team.
Yeah. And then I like this Canada team, but Germany's just got that quality. Germany's a good team. Brazil's my favorite for the tournament. I think they beat Portugal.
Okay.
This Belgium-Japan game could be very interesting. I think I'm a little low on this Belgium team. I think a lot of their stars are kind of fading a little bit. I think 2018 was maybe their peak time. Like obviously Kevin De Bruyne is still a world-class player, but
I was hearing today in the commentary that Lukaku hasn't trained. So he's a major doubt for the first two games.
And Eden Hazard is not the same player. I like this Japan team. I'm going to take them over Belgium. I think that they're a very well-organized team, and I think they could surprise people. I think they have ability to beat Belgium. I think that would be definitely an upset because a lot of people are very high on them. But I think that Belgium their time kind of passed them in 2018. And then when I did a prediction earlier, I had Switzerland beating Uruguay. I'm kind of considering going back on that. I had Switzerland going all the way to the semifinals because I feel like the road is
Switzerland is a good team, but I think Uruguay has the talent, like the individual skill to go past them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back on what I had earlier. I'm gonna go with Uruguay beating Switzerland. I'm sorry, Granit Xhaka. I hope you prove me wrong, but we're gonna go with Uruguay there.
Quarterfinals.
Argentina beats the US. I can't be a homer for this long. Okay, yeah. Everything I say would have to just not matter in this entire podcast if I said the US is going to beat Argentina, because I would just be straight up lying to you. I might be lying to you about them beating the Netherlands. I might just be a little too biased. Who knows?
That's the whole point.
Yeah. And then I think Brazil beat Germany. I think they get redemption for the 7-1 in 2014.
Do you think they're going to score 7?
I do not think they're going to score 7. I think Germany is too good to have 7 dropped on them, but we'll see. This Brazil team is very good. I think France beat England. I think England's run comes to an end in the quarterfinals, unfortunately for them. And I think Uruguay beats Japan.
That's true. That's exactly what I thought. Okay.
And then semifinals. I think Brazil beats Argentina. That's going to be a fun match, a rematch of the Copa America. And I think Brazil once again gets their revenge. This is like a really, really stacked Brazil team, and I don't feel the same way around Argentina that I do around Brazil. I think Argentina.
You don't see a Messi miracle in the semifinals. I
mean, obviously that can totally happen. That is 100% a possibility, and that could just mess up all of my predictions. Yeah, 100%. And I could totally see that happening.
And he's flying high in like the tournaments. I mean, everywhere. Yeah.
if anyone can make something happen like that, it's Lionel Messi. I do think Brazil win it though,
Okay.
personally.
Okay.
And then I think France beat Uruguay in the other semifinal to set up a France-Brazil final of the World Cup. And I have Brazil winning it.
Brazil winning it. Okay, awesome.
We're gonna get to see Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus holding that golden trophy. We're gonna have some great screensavers of the two of them holding that together. It's gonna be good vibes for Arsenal fans because Martinelli's gonna carry them to the final.
I hope that is true because we do need our strikers to come back, like, in high spirits. If we are going to do something great in this
post World Cup winning Gabriel Jesus and Martinelli could be a danger for the rest of the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly. But continuing on that trend, just throwing you questions about like individual achievements during this World Cup, right? Like, who do you think is going to be the breakout player for this tournament?
Ooh, the breakout player. I mean, if I'm going to continue my thread of being a homer, I'm going to say Yunus Musa for the US. Former Hale End boy. I think that he's going to be fantastic in this tournament. If the US does well, he will be a key part in that. Like if my prediction about the US is correct, Yunus Musa will have been very, very good in this tournament. I'm a huge fan of the player. I would love for an Arsenal homecoming with him. But if I was to pick someone outside of it, if Martinelli plays, he could genuinely be a breakout in this tournament, because I think everyone who watches the Premier League has kind of knows how good Gabriel Martinelli is now, and Arsenal fans especially know how good Gabriel Martinelli is. But if he's able to not only break into this Brazil team and get serious minutes, but also perform really well, there's no reason why he's not all of a sudden just one of the biggest stars in the world. I could 100% totally see that happening. Those are two kind of homer picks for me, but
I'm happy,
you know what I'm going with. I will shamelessly be a homer for Arsenal and the United States. I am never more patriotic than I am during the World Cup.
All right, so moving on, the Golden Glove winner.
If Brazil's winning the World Cup, Alisson's going to be the Golden Glove. He's the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah,
he's going to keep that going for Brazil. He's fantastic. I think Alisson wins the Golden Glove.
About the most goals scored, the Golden Boot.
I think Harry Kane gets that. That's a little bad to say on an Arsenal podcast, but I think England has a shot of scoring a decent amount of goals, and I think Harry Kane kind of breaks his rut that he's had in tournaments for England, and I think he has a real shot at Golden Boot. But also I saw some tweets today. I was like, there seriously might be the Golden Boot winner coming out of Group A just because they can farm against Qatar. Like I could see like a surprise Cody Gakpo pick, like if Mane was playing, I would put money on Mane because all of a sudden he could drop 3 on Qatar in the group stages. But I'm gonna go with Harry Kane, and I know that's bad to say on an Arsenal podcast. That could get me.
It's fine. I mean, as long as he doesn't win anything for Spurs, which is 100% true, I'm happy with whatever.
This is a different Harry Kane. We don't have to like hate him with a fiery passion.
I mean, I do hate him.
Me too. But like he's wearing an England shirt and not a Spurs shirt, and that's it's marginally better for me. Yeah. So. But I will be less of a hater.
The last question is, who's going to be the player of the tournament? For me, the problem is every World Cup in the past has been the player of the tournament has been from the team that has not won the World Cup. They have always picked like last season, I think it was Luka Modric. They were the finalists. And before that it was Lionel Messi.
Those are 2 finalists. And so if we're gonna follow that trend and France is my finalist, I'm gonna go with Kylian Mbappe.
But do you think Kylian? I mean, I'm not a big fan, so I might be biased here, but I don't see him being like that effective.
I think he absolutely will be that effective. I think that the stories that come out about him and his ego, I think, has clouded a lot of people's judgments of just like remembering how good Kylian Mbappe is. Like he was so good for France in 2018, and he was a teenager. He's getting even better. If there's a player like to where Benzema's out for this World Cup, he just won the Ballon d'Or, and I still think France is going to the final. Kylian Mbappe is going to be a big part of that.
True, that makes sense. Anyways, that's awesome, Mitch. Having you here talking about the World Cup. It's amazing to have you always.
I really appreciate having me.
Thank you. Thank you for all your thoughts, and thank you for taking time off. And also, we will try and, do more of this once the tournament progresses. We will obviously unashamedly will go back on our predictions, talk about things in a completely different light.
Yeah, all of my hot takes are just gonna be awful. Like,
but we would not even acknowledge that and be like, yeah, we said this. Although
don't check the other episode. I
Yeah.
predicted that Iran would go all the way. I always knew they'd win the group.
Yeah, so we are going to do that anyways. So thank you so much for joining in, and for all the listeners, please do like, share, subscribe, and follow Mitch in his Twitter handle, and he has amazing takes on it, like I said before.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.